So, welcome. My name is Noel Gordon, and this is my story about my experience in the school system, in the British school system. It's a long story. It started back in 1966. I was born in an RAF hospital, Halton Camp, Buckinghamshire, Wendover, where my parents were working. My parents came here in 1960. I was born 66 on an RAF base. Queen Mary Hospital it was. So my early life, I've got no much memories of being a baby and all that. But I do remember this. When I was 4, I went to Stoke Mandeville Hospital to have my teeth extracted. And the doctor said, it's not a problem. I told my parents, we'll take the teeth out, no issues there. But they had to sign a consent form. And my dad didn't feel right about that. Why have I got to sign a consent form? They're just taking out baby teeth. So he left my mum in with the doctor. My mum being up with me at night. She felt for me. And as they did in them days, they always trusted these white men in suits. And this is a doctor, yeah? So my mum signed the consent form. I had my teeth out. I woke up in a hospital bed, 4 doctors holding me down. Looked in my arm, there was a drip in my arm. Still got the scar there today. And my mum later explained to me they were giving me a blood transfusion. And my dad hit the roof. He said, there's nothing wrong with him. He went to hospital to have his teeth out. Why does he need a blood transfusion now? And it turns out they said I've got this condition called sickle cell, which is a blood disorder. It's a prevention against malaria. There was didn't know a lot about it at the time. So I got over it. And actually, one of the doctors said to my mum, you've got 9 children. What does it matter if you lose one? And she can hit me with a handbag, but he ran off. What a thing to say, you've got 9 children, what happens if you lose one? So I got over that. And my mum took me back to the RAF hospital where I was born, RAF Halton Camp. And the Indian doctor who delivered me and all that, he hit the roof. He goes, what have they done to him? So he got on the phone to him and he said, look, you're supposed to test the blood before you give an anaesthetic. It was a big hoo-ha at the time. And the West Indian community was up in arms. And my dad's friend said to him, look, if that was my son, I'd cut the doctor's throat. And they all got together one day and said, look, they said that they'll get him better. They'll take care of him. You can't do nothing about this. This is the way the system is. We're a minority. This is the British system. This is the way it works. If they said they'll take care of me, and they pacified him by saying, look, we'll take care of him for the rest of his living days. Keep an eye on him type of thing. So my parents took them at their word. Back in those days, your word was your bond. So I got over that, went to infant schools as normal. Well, I'm 6 now. This guy comes from the education department to my house. He says to my mum, your son needs to be in a school where there's a matron. He's got this condition called sickle cell. And we found a school. It's a special needs boarding school. It's called White Spires. It's 15 miles from home. We're picking him up on a Monday, bringing him back on a Friday. So my mum thinks to herself, well, he's a bit young to leave home to go to a boarding school, but I accept it. I'll agree to do that. Then out of the blue, he goes to my mum, he's dunce. My mum thinks, dunce? Bang on a minute, he's only 6 and our school will sort this out. She thought nothing more about it. But what the guy was alluding to, they were putting me in a special needs subnormal boarding school for children with learning difficulties, mental and physical difficulties. There was no curriculum, but the guy couldn't tell her that because she wouldn't agree to it. They only found out, right, I'm in the school not long. The first day I arrived in school, they picked me up by taxi, take me to school. I'm the last one in the class. And this boy stands up out of his chair and he goes, oi, nigger. And I'm thinking, oh, I must be somehow different. Because I never knew I knew nothing about colour. Because there's white people, my brother and sister-in-law was white. So that's just Uncle George and Art Sale. Didn't know any different. So the teacher goes to him, sit down. And that was settled there and then. And it's like on a Monday morning, I would do writing. Automatically, I would just write without being told to write. I'd watch films at the weekend, things like Doctor Who, James Bond, and on a Monday morning, I'd just write it down verbatim. I couldn't spell then, so it wasn't an issue. One day I'm walking down the corridor. This is in the boarding side of school now. I finished school day. I get this punch in my back. I had these boys behind me running, punched me in the back, sent me flying. So I get on the phone, reverse the charges. Now they said I'm dunce, right? But I know my home number. I'm 6, I'm not quite 7 yet. Reverse the charges to my mum, right? Tell her what's going on. My dad comes with my brother. Headmaster, Mr. Atherton his name was, he sends for the boy. My dad took one look at him, he goes, "Headmaster, this is a school for handicapped children." And the headmaster goes, "Well, we don't call them that, we call them slow learners." So my brother turns to my dad and he says, "Are you going to leave him here?" He said, "What can I do? My hands are tied." So the headmaster assured him that I'm going to be all right. They'll take care of me. It won't happen again. And they left. My dad couldn't navigate the system. He didn't realise he could have appealed that decision. So he took them at their word. In them days, that's what he did. This was 1972. Took them at their word. So at that point, the headmaster never said to my dad, "There's no curriculum in our school. Your son will not receive an education." All cloak and dagger stuff. Lies and deceit from the outset. Now, I do remember on Mondays, Mrs. Riggs would teach me to read. Simple words like caravan, seaside, like 1 or 2 syllable words. So the reading scheme started early, but it stopped at 12. And the next thing I realised is that I'm now 12 and I'm playing with my friends in the playground. And I heard this voice say, "Come here. This is Christine, one of a sport worker." So, and I run behind the wall. I'm not running to get away because I've done nothing wrong. She runs up to me, pulls me in like that, and beats me over the head repeatedly, calls me a black bastard under her breath. Now I'm behind a brick wall, right, so no one can see. But my mate, Ian, is on the other side. So I kick off now. I run away from school. I called her a slag. I started swearing at her, run away from school. So one of the good teachers, he brought me back. His name was Mr. Edkins, but this guy was all right, one of the best teachers. So he brought me back to school. They put me to bed early. I told him, look, she called me a black bastard. This time I'm crying now, she called me a black bastard. Didn't believe a word of what I said. And what surprises me about that, I've been in the school 6 years by this point. I'm now 12. And this woman was a support worker. She hadn't been there long, maybe 6 months, if that. And they believed everything she was said. And on that day, I'm kicking off, I'm swearing, I'm running away from school. There were 2 other support workers in the playground, and they heard me kick off, swearing and running away. And what surprises me, they never thought to themselves, well, hang on a minute, he's never done that before. Is that a character for him? So they put me to bed in a 2-bed dormitory. We normally sleep 5 to a dormitory. So I haven't got my mates to talk to. I'm scared of the dark, right? It's pitch black. And then one of the boys can't say, your mum's on the phone. So I go downstairs to the reception, speak to my mum, tell her what's going on. And she comes to the school. A few hours later, they take me away from the school and take me home for a couple of weeks. They made an arrangement with the headmaster to try and get me out of that environment. And they said, yeah, we can do that, but we have to get his education up. So what we do is we'll send him to a secondary school on a part-time basis. So I go to my boarding school, 15 miles from home, and 2 days a week I walk around to Denby. There's over 1,000 kids in this school. I'm the only brown boy there. Very intimidating. I'm the odd one out. They know what school I came from. I came from the Nutter school. I got called nigger one day. Really intimidating. And what surprises me about that, when I turned up for class, they gave me a handout. It was on our desks, and we had to read this. And I'm thinking, I can't read it. And I think about it today, well, hang on a minute. I've come from a subnormal school with no curriculum. So it's obvious I'm not going to be able to read it. My reading level is not where it should be. And they didn't take this into consideration. Eventually, they moved me to the porter cabin. The porter cabin is where they put children who are falling behind or have got some sort of learning difficulties. No one talks to me. No teacher says to me, how are you getting on? In either school, my subnormal school or the school I'm going to. So eventually, one day I play truant, don't want to go. And when my class teacher finds out, she didn't ask me what happened. Are you not happy? She goes to me, why did you not go? Why did you not go? So obviously I didn't say nothing. So that class, my class in my special school went out on 3 different occasions, 3 different school trips, left me in a class writing out of a book. I now think I'm in the wrong because I played truant. I didn't tell my mum. And then one day I come home from the secondary school, come back to my boarding school, go to the headmaster. I said, sir, I don't want to go back anymore. I don't like it. He goes, one more term. I said, I don't like it, sir. So he said, all right, fair enough. All right, you can stay then. No more going back to the secondary school. That same evening, he sacks the woman who calls me a black bastard. And no other attempt was made to get me out of there. That's when my problems really started. Because the deputy headmistress, one day when I came back from the weekend break, I walk into Finished class for the day, walk into the boarding section, and her name's Mrs. O'Neill. She says to me, "No more telling lies." I'm like, oh, all right, miss, all right. Not really, like she's intimidated me into lying. She now thinks I'm lying. This is a Monday morning, right? So I wait till Friday. I go home, I tell my mum, she said I was lying. My mum says, "Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about them." Yeah. So I think, okay, don't worry about it. That woman went on to bully me for 4 years. Some of the things she would say to me, she had a really nasty attitude. One day, I was this is lunchtime. I think I was about 13 at that time. And she's walking through the dining hall. I said, Mrs. O'Neill, I want to be a car mechanic like my brother. Because my brother was a mechanic. I was like reading his books, looking at the schematic diagrams. And she stopped. She goes, "You'll never be able to do it." Just carried on walking. And I'm thinking, oh, all right then. Okay. What else can I say? Do you know what I'm saying? Because I had no frame of reference. I'm in a school, a special needs boarding school with no curriculum. So when you're 12 or 13, you don't know what you don't know. So I'm thinking, okay, all right, fair enough. Another time, I'm in her class now, and she goes, we had to do a writing exercise to do with work. Everyone else was all right. She comes to me, she goes to me, "I wouldn't give you an interview on the strength of that." And I'm thinking, oh, all right then, because I'm none the wiser. So she bullied me at specific times over a period of 4 years. There's a lot to talk about. We had a cooking class, right? One day a week we go to the cookery class. And one day I made this meat pie. And they know I'm a boarder, right? So that means I'm not going home. Because children in that school, some of them went home, some boarded. So woman in the cookery class gives me this meat pie. What do I do with it? I stick it in my drawer. In the dormitory, where my clothes are, there's an empty drawer, I stick it in there and just leave it there. And I forgot to take it home with me. So it starts to go mouldy. So I think, I better throw that away. And I thought nothing of it. And I used to bring drinks in with me, right? I'm about 15 or 16 around this point in time, because they could put me in a 2-bed dormitory, that's my own room. I'm 16 now, I can deal with that sort of thing. So I'd bring in drinks, leave it in the drawer, hide it. And at night, sometimes I'd drink it and just put it back in there. My mates come in my dormitory, do you want some crisp? Yeah, I've got some crisp here, right? I'm a teenager. What young people do. The day I left school, the taxi's waiting for me. I'm going to the taxi. So I left school now. I'm now 16. I'm leaving school for good. She's waiting in the corridor. And she comes up to me, she shakes my hand. She said, "Your handshake is very limp. It's got to be firm." That's the only thing she taught me. Then she goes, "Them meat pies you had in your drawer, and them drinks, yeah, we knew about that." And I'm thinking, yeah, so what? But it's just the way she's saying it, really nasty attitude. As if I've got something to hide. Years later, I realised, because of my sickle cell, I get dehydrated. This is why I have to drink. Yeah, she did that to me on the very day I left school. Another time, the headmaster comes to me before I left school and he said, "Do you want to stay on?" So I start to process this now. Stay on, what's it going to be like? No more school. I'm walking down from the dormitories, walking downstairs, and she's going up with another student. And she passes me on the way up. And she looks at me and she goes, "You don't want to stay on." I'm thinking, yeah, you're right. Don't stay. Get out. Get out of school. Don't bother stay there. So this is the sort of stuff I had to put up with over a 4-year period. And when I left school, I couldn't write, I couldn't spell, I could barely read. So I had to work as a labourer. That's the only job, that's the only work I could get, because I couldn't fill out application forms. So I worked as a labourer for the council, 4 days a week, and we got the Friday off. And I started doing evening classes. And in those evening classes, I remember doing, the first time, his name was Mr. Green, he gave me a timetable sheet. He said, "These are your timetables. This is how you use the sheet." And he starts teaching me multiplication. He goes, "These are your units, these are your tens." I think, oh, that's how you do it. So I did my first qualification. I was 22, working as a labourer for the council and I did an evening job, cleaning job, to make my wages up. I was getting £54 a week. And I was 22 when I did my first qualification, City and Guilds Maths. It was just basically multiplication. Now, because they gave me the day off on a Friday, my mate lived on the same road as me. He was doing City and Guilds Electronics, 224, TV and radio servicing at High Wycombe College. So I thought, that sounds good. I'd like to do something like that. And my brother recommended, said, yeah, you should do something like that. I'm thinking, man, hang on a minute, I've got no education. How am I going to cope with that? He says, well, look, you can teach whatever they learn teaching, you can learn that. I thought, that sounds reasonable. That makes sense. So I went to college on a Friday, worked 4 days a week as a labourer on a Friday, get a day off, I go to High Wycombe College. And that was the highlight of my week. I'm actually learning stuff now. How to do electronics, what a circuit is, what a resistance is, a resistor and a capacitor and a transistor. I've got a buzz out of it. The qualification was multiple choice. The thing with multiple choice, right, there's 4 questions. And if you get, there's 2 questions and they're very similar. So if you haven't done the revision, gone to class, you're going to get it wrong. I got it right. I smashed the exam, passed. I was over the moon. It gave me a buzz. So I kept doing that. And sometimes I think back to my school days, thinking, especially when I'm doing multiplication, why couldn't I do that in school? When I was 12, all we did was addition and subtraction. That's it. Every Friday, addition and subtraction, nothing else. For English, we didn't do any form of writing, very little writing. I wasn't taught how to spell. So I'm filled with this desire to learn. Because when I went to the special school, and I walk around to the secondary school, I'm there for 2 terms. And during that period of time, I had an epiphany. I started to realize, actually, I can learn this stuff, what they're teaching me in school. Even though I'm behind, I can learn. And I realized I can do all this. So I realized, I can learn now. I'm thinking, but I thought, well, I don't like it here. So I ended up not going. And in my special school, I'm saying to myself, when I leave and go to school, I go to college like my brother and my sisters, they were at college. And one day at lunchtime, I said to the headmaster, how come we don't do history, science or geography? And this is what he did exactly. Looked out the window. Oh, we don't do that here. But he knew exactly why he didn't do it, because they had no curriculum. Those schools weren't set up to educate children. They were set up more like holding camps, dumping grounds for children who couldn't learn. That's why the title was subnormal. And these things have come back to me throughout my life. You know, while I was doing my City and Guilds, I just got in electronics. I just got on with it every Friday. I used to love doing that stuff. Because I couldn't spell properly, I'm looking at the board, I'm trying to write things down, and my handwriting's scruffy. But I got the gist of it. I used to love doing the diagrams on circuits and transformers and that sort of stuff. So my handwriting would be rough. Then on the weekend, I'd go through the whole stuff again and make it nice and neat so it was readable. I used to love doing that. So my school life was very difficult. My working life, very difficult, working as a labourer, studying evening classes to try and get somewhere in life. And when I was doing the City and Guilds, my reasoning was, if I do this, I can get a job in electronics. Well, guess what? A YTS scheme came around. And I thought, let me apply for that. I got a job in a TV company. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that I was doing this job in a TV company. But they weren't really training me to do electronics. It's a 2-man operation. I learned stuff on mechanical stuff like video recorders. And they gave me a day release to go to college. And I was getting £25 a week to go to college, to do on a YTS. On a Friday, I'm going to college to learn electronics, which is something that I've always wanted to do. And I got a great buzz out of that. And the manager paid for my driving lessons, so I passed my driving test. He let me drive the company van. I did that for 18 months. Then the company kind of went down because he decided that business wasn't good. It was going to close the company down. Gave me a good reference. I moved to London and I get a job in the NHS. But something just jogged, my mind is just jogged now. When I was living in Aylesbury, and arguing with my sister, she kicks me out. So I've got nowhere to live, right? I live with my sister. When my parents returned to Jamaica, I spent some time out there. I came back living with her. So now I'm homeless. I think I was 21 at the time. I had nowhere to go. One of my mates helped me out. He said, come stay with me. So I stayed with him for a little bit until I could find a room to rent. So I'm now working. Get a job working for this TV company, getting £25 a week with my wages. My rent was £20 a week, £25 a week. And that's how I went through life, just trying to re-educate myself and trying to get on with life. But this education thing, not being schooled, it's been really, really impact on my life. Been told I'm dunce for 10 years. They told my parents I was dunce. My dad sort of believed what he was told. I went to Jamaica with him when I was 15. Took me there, met my family for the first time. And he's my Jamaican family, that is, my uncles and my aunts. And my dad says to my uncle, this is Noel, my last son, and he's dunce. And I'm thinking, you really got to say that? But it shows you his mental health. He actually believed what he was told. I was seen as the family lunatic. I'm introvert, I'm quiet. I used to have temper tantrums when I was younger because I couldn't express myself. It's that feeling of not being worthy. You feel inferior because you're told you're stupid, right, for 10 years, and there's no curriculum. So I've gone through life thinking this and having a lot of self-doubt. But when I started doing the electronics, I thought, yeah, I love this. And they just give us a calculator. So we had formulas that we had to use, right, Ohm's law type of stuff. And I had a calculator showing how to use the formula, but I didn't know how to transpose it. That's algebra. Now, at 12, all I'm doing is addition and subtraction in school. I should have learned algebra at 11. I should have done the 11 plus. So I had no understanding of what a fraction is, what a percentage is, what a decimal is. Didn't know any of it. And as I'm doing this course in City and Guilds, also I did City and Guilds maths. After I passed my first qualification in City and Guilds electronics and City and Guilds maths, I moved on to the second year, still working as in a TV company, and still doing the evening classes. I started to learn about percentages, fractions, decimals, and I'm like 22, 23. I started to learn all this stuff. So to cut a long story short, I moved to London and I got a job in the NHS working as a biomedical engineer. That was my second job in electronics. I left High Wycombe College, I'm going to Tottenham College, then Southgate College to do these qualifications. Started that job in the NHS 1990. By 92, I'm fully qualified. But I'm not being treated very well. I'm experiencing institutional racism. I've been in the job like 3 months, and I hear, down with the niggers. And I'm thinking, who said that? Did he just say that? That's my manager, in the room adjacent to me. I think to myself, keep your mouth shut. Just keep it shut, don't say nothing. This man was a proper racist, bullying me over a 4-year period. Eventually I complained to management and they said, yep, we know about him. 6 months later, they sacked me on the spot and called it redundancy. This was 1994. I'm 27 at this point. I started when I was 23, worked there for 4 years. I'm now 27. So I got to see my union rep. He said, I can't help you. I've been taken off your case.
Okay.
Yeah. So where I am now, right? I've been at university. I've got a degree in computing and I did a PGC, postgraduate certificate in education. And I got this calling to write again. Like I said, I was writing when I was 6. So I got this calling to write. So I started writing. I wrote this book called Jake's Alien Adventures. It's a space adventure which I wrote this back in 2013, self-published it. And the impact on my life has been tremendous. The racism I've encountered in school, in the workplace, in general, it's really impacted on my life. I featured in a documentary called Subnormal, a British Scandal, available on BBC iPlayer. You'll meet Maisie Barrett in there, Anne-Marie, 2 girls who went through the same system as me. This happened to thousands of us. I also featured on BBC Radio 4, Sideways with Matthew Saeed, and it's called Divergent Histories, BBC Radio 4. Check that out. What they did to us was all eugenics. Basically that black people are stupid. This is why I've suffered so long, so hard. Life has been terrible for me, very difficult. Can't get on in life, can't move forward. You move forward 1 step, you step forward, step backwards 10 steps. Because like the struggle we've had to live with is institutional racism and having a condition called sickle cell. Life's been very difficult. I've done a lot of studying because I felt so inferior in school. I wanted to catch up. And it's like I've never been able to catch up really because what I've lost, I can't get back. So that's basically my story, Noel Gordon. It's been a nightmare. This happened to thousands of black kids. Happened to white kids as well, but the difference is they said the black children were inferior and it's followed us right the way through life. It's a racist ideology called eugenics, pseudoscience. They just made this stuff up. The early Europeans just made it all up. This is basically my story and where I am now. I'm now writing, but I'm trying to make an income from my writing. I've got a website. It's called It's the 3Ws, jakesalienadventures.com. And you'll see my book there, and you'll see a preview. My son narrates the story. I run after school clubs. I go in and I teach children how to write, because I'm trying to connect with them, because I know that everyone's got a talent. Like I said, if you listen to the BBC Radio 4 program about the subnormal, about eugenics, I say everyone's got a spark inside them. We've all got this spark. We're all born with a gift, and school destroyed that. They tried to destroy that. They took it out of me, and it's taken me a long time to come back around to what it was I really wanted to do, and that's to write. So I'm just trying to show you in briefly that I'm black. They say I'm mixed race. I always identify with being black. The system is institutionally racist. They've oppressed me. They've abused me. I've been demonized, stigmatized, and terrorized, but still I rise. Imagine where I could be now in my life had they not set me back. I went to Parliament last year with Kim Johnson, gave us a meeting up there. Over 100 people came, Professor Gus John, Professor Leslie Thomas, King's Counsel, and he said we deserve a public inquiry. This is what we're pushing for, a public inquiry, to open all this stuff up and to acknowledge what we've been through, and then to compensate us, even though they can't give us back what we've lost. We want this public inquiry with immediate effect. Everyone else is getting one. Why can't we get one? I'll tell you why, because we're black. It's as simple as that. They all know what they've done to us, and they're still hiding behind the law to try and make out, we didn't know. But when this has been documented, it's in government literature, documentation. These schools were classified as subnormal for children who could not learn, who were physically and mentally handicapped. That's the term we used back then. They call it, nowadays they talk about neurodiversity, which is more to the point. They say I'm dyslexic. Right? I had a test for dyslexia in 2005 after I finished my degree. They had to give me that test because I applied to do a postgraduate certificate in education. And I spoke to the guy recently. I said, if you tested me when I left school, I didn't know what a fraction was. I could not do much writing. I could barely read. I couldn't spell. I couldn't write. He said I would have been severely dyslexic. In 2005, he classified me as being mildly dyslexic. There is a big difference. All that studying I'd done made a difference. Even the testing is wrong. Even that is wrong. The system is really insidious and Machiavellian about the way they treat us. And we've had enough. We're telling our stories now. If I tell his story, which is polluted and convoluted, you'll never hear our story. You never hear my story, what I have suffered, the degradation, the poverty, the neglect from teachers, getting bullied, getting beat up and racially abused at the age of 12 and bullied over a 4-year period. This has to come out, our stories. We've had enough of living in what I call this a unique form of bondage by the British government. They know exactly what they did to us, and they continue to do it by denying us a public inquiry. So I've had a petition out twice now, this year. First time I got 500, second time I got 800. Next year, 2025, we're going back to Parliament. We've been offered a meeting because it's the 40th year of the Swan Report, which came out after Bernard Cord wrote his seminal book in 1971, How the West Indian Child is Made Educationally Subnormal in the British School System. It took them over a decade for them to reform, which they started in 1985 with the Swan Report. You can get that online. It talks about the racism that we suffer, why we're held back in life. And it'll be the 40th year next year. We're going to have another meeting in the House of Commons, and we're pushing for a public inquiry. And there will be a petition to sign. So when it's out, you'll see me back on social media, giving interviews. I need you to sign that. Because many of us, there's people that were put in care homes for 18 years. A guy called Peter Woods, sexually abused over an 18-year period. And my friend called Rennie Stevenson, he was in the care system. He couldn't get adopted because he's black. The same with Peter Woods. They don't want black children or mixed race children. Very, very, very hard to get adopted. Abused sexually, mentally. All this trauma we're carrying today. And we need to release that. We've got to talk about this. We can't take this to our graves. The system has destroyed us, systematically, deliberately, and willfully. And it's time we tell our stories. That's my story, part of my story. I'm Noel Gordon. Check me out.